Tatsuki Fujimoto loves to make Denji suffer, bring all of this negative emotion, this hatred, this suffering, this despair, and you've seen it so perfectly portrayed throughout part 2. I would say it's entirely different to part 1. Scope, perspective, how deep it actually gets, and how methodical it's played upon within each chapter. So the amount of hate that boils up towards Denji as a character from other people's perspective is really interesting towards me, because we're getting to a point now where we're kind of in the midst of two different directions and a looming threat that is going to make or break this entire world. We have Yoshida, Public Safety, Fumiko trying to get Denji not to be Chainsaw Man. They want to give him a simple, easy lifestyle. On the other hand, this chapter reinforces the awakening of Chainsaw Man, becoming one with the Chainsaw Man Church, offering all of these different things, yet there's a sprinkle of people that want to activate Chainsaw Man for this forthcoming event. Denji is in the middle of all of this, really torn between both different directions, and while both of them don't really provide much clarity because it's very murky, manipulative, and everyone has their own agendas, you can't help but feel bad for Denji for being led both ways. He really has no option currently. If he sits still and doesn't do anything, it's going to be bad. If he becomes Chainsaw Man and does something, it's going to be bad. So he's getting backed into this corner by two different organizations that's really challenging his mental fortitude for things. This chapter is a great example of that. Even though it's a little small encounter right at the end with a hybrid that we've seen before, I think it does well to show a bigger perspective with what Denji is dealing with. Funny enough, not everyone is on the same mindset, however. I am very much convinced that Miri Shugo, Sword Guy, is a hybrid, has genuine feelings towards Denji as a friend. Like, he wants the best for Denji. When you kind of go through and see how the Chainsaw Man Church actually operates, you can kind of tell that he's not really on board or really even understands the full capacities of what's possible. Meaning that the Chainsaw Man Church is doing things in a way that's very ironic that Miri doesn't really agree with. He just wants to help people. He sees the positive outcome, which is saving more people. Even though there's a bunch of murky stuff prior saving people, he still sees just that. Leave a like and subscribe as it supports the Chainsaw Man Church. Every donation counts, so do it. Do it right now. Like and fortunately, this gives them something to bond over, and where I feel like that friendship might actually be genuine. Denji used to be a similar way. Very simple in his goals and wanting to achieve it in any way. Miri shares a similar brain cell, wants to do this for people, and is willing to kind of ignore everything in front of it, be it good or bad. Basically, seeing them together, seeing them operate, it feels kind of natural. It feels nice. They converse with each other really well. They seem like they could have a genuine friendship, and the banter and humor that would come from it. They're not entirely different, and they all have their own kind of personal agenda, which was the biggest thing I was worried about with Miri. I thought he might have been more manipulated by Fami or someone else, but he seems true to what he wants, which is to help people. Chainsaw Man Church, the ideology, the people behind it, is hilarious. It is completely ironic on purpose, and this is something that Fujimoto does very often. He plays into this elaborate idea that's critiquing something, yet the people that are critiquing it also are doing the same thing. So you'll probably notice that there's a lot of Western, or at least America hate, quote unquote, within this chapter, and it's purposefully pushed that way as a Western ideology, most likely because of it being penned as a conspiracy theory. There's a lot of things in this chapter that just isn't true, so it's ironic when Chainsaw Man Church is criticizing America for doing these things and like producing propaganda and having this weird perspective of marriage and this and that, but then they themselves are falling to that exact same problem. And what a perfect way to deliver it to you as a reader than having it narrated and guided by Kobeni's brother. That is right. The person that we seen a while back that we all kind of knew was a sibling of Kobeni now finally has a name. Nobana. Now, Nobana is a guide for Denji and goes on to explain pretty much how the Chainsaw Man Church works. Now, they have a building, they absorbed the cult and took everything from it, and they claim to not be a cult, which is funny. It just continuously plays back into the irony of the Chainsaw Man Church ideology. Nobana describes this to Denji like he doesn't know. It's hilarious because they operate on these ideas that are penned around Chainsaw Man when it's not true at all. So you see the confusion on Denji's face, like, oh, the reason why so many people are slaves, like America for example, is because of this ultraviolet ray weapon in Japan's air. Real conspiracy theory, and this is what's manipulating all all the people in Japan, but Chainsaw Man, with his super godlike vision, was able to see it and conquer it and awaken us all. Completely not true whatsoever, but that's the point. Denji's expression, his understanding, he's trying to think, did he actually do that? Is that a possibility? I think he's stunned that so many people buy into this weirdness. To double down even further, they want to control students marrying people. They try to push this onto Denji, and he's kind of confused about it because he just wants to sleep with women. And then it's flipped back into some sort of controlling mechanism that America brought over to control Japanese people. Conspiracy heavy, very purposeful. Now, I love the interaction between Miri and Denji here because he kind of just flips. He's like, I didn't do any of this stuff. This is all fake. This is all propaganda. Y'all just making stuff up about me. And Miri knows this. Like, he's not shocked or surprised. Like, yes, they embellish things and he tries to minimalize it as much as possible, but he knows that all the stuff that's being sold to people is completely false. It's fabricated. But then that's when it jumps back to Miri's true goal when it comes to saving a bunch of people and helping people, and Denji actually pushes him on that ideology. So he's challenging Miri morally, which is surprising coming from Denji. You don't see that often, especially because that judgmental side also kind of reflects inward because he's here to sleep with women. Okay. So all around, everyone's ironic, everyone's a hypocrite, everyone doesn't really know what's going on, and they're all just being kind of puppeteered by much more intelligent people. Now, between all of this commotion, we get introduced to another hybrid, Barram. This was one of the more interesting hybrids from part 1. He was the flamethrower hybrid, I believe, but his interaction with Makima and being under control has always been questioned by a lot of people. If you go back and read part 1, he kind of observes the situation with Makima very differently to other people, whereas everyone else is fawning over her and wants to go on a date. He kind of observes it from a third party where he's like, wow, everyone really does want to go on a date with Makima. So people question that. Seeing him here is big though. I mean, we kind of knew that a lot of the hybrids are going to come back. We just don't know in what fashion. Because you think of hybrids, immediately you think of Reze, you think of Xuanxi, Katana Man, for example, as well. Are they here? Honestly, it's probably safe to assume so, at least for now. If Fami is truly building an arsenal of weaponry for war to wield against Nostradamus' prophecy, Chainsaw Man is a part of that, but so are all of the other hybrids. I like that Barram is really obnoxious and over the top. He seemed rather stoic, but again, he was controlled, technically. Seeing a lot more of their personalities shine is really nice. You learn more about them, etc. But he's scary. Barram definitely changes the pace of this chapter and really shifts the ending into something a lot more thought-provoking for Denji, coming back to that being split or torn between a normal regular life and becoming Chainsaw Man, but he does it in a way that for me I find very mentally intrusive. Now, I don't know if this is planned, I don't know if Fami has put him up to this or, you know, part of their goal, etc., but it's very efficient. Barram knows exactly what type of words to say to lead Denji down a certain train of thought. He mentions Asa, for example, and even though Denji and Asa aren't technically friends, they still have a bit of history, and in the most menacing way, Barram asks, would killing Asa Mitaka bring back Chainsaw Man? Even though the chapter ends here, with Barram kind of questioning what would be a starter for Chainsaw Man, what would kickstart that transformation, it leaves us on an eerie note, and a bunch of different ideas in our head on what the Chainsaw Man Church, or at least the hybrids, are trying to do. It definitely seems like there is a disparity between how much information and knowledge certain people have. I believe Miri is a pretty good person. I could be completely wrong. I think Barram would work pretty closely with Fami, and if Fami's goal is to manipulate Chainsaw Man and get the starter under control so she can activate it whenever she wants, of course you need as much information as possible. We as viewers, funny enough, do not know what Chainsaw Man's starter is. You might think, oh, it's Makima. Oh, it's all the pain and trauma that Denji has gone through. It's all the loss that he's experienced in part 1, yet we don't know what kicked it over. We don't know what truly activated it within that moment. That is what Fami's most likely looking for. So of course there is a ton of things that they can do to make it easier, to build up to it, to kind of slightly play along the same routes as part 1. The biggest difference is that Denji's not going to fall for it as easy this time. You could make an argument, well, he fell for the whole women thing again, and he's easy to manipulate with women and things of affection and whatnot, of course. but ripping those things away does not hold a candle to the relationship he built with Power and Aki. So Asa Mitaka might be the only thing currently that they could actually work with, yet even then his relationship with her isn't that crazy. So the one thing that we know of right now that would really push that starter over, and I'm hoping that either Fami hasn't thought about it yet or she's trying to gauge it, is Naoyuta. The relationship that Denji and Naoyuta have is dangerous, yet it's weird that Fami wanted to work with her. Was it for this reason? I don't really know. We do have a chapter next week. I'm excited to see where Fujimoto takes us, and hopefully Denji can stay mentally strong through these tough times. He's gonna need it.